No, I understand that it's just Big Head Todd and the Monsters, but you can't bootleg merch anymore. I mean, it's not. Uh, yeah, nobody knows who the fuck they are, but yeah, you can't. I actually gotta go. I don't even know who this is. I don't know what bootlegging. I don't know anything about shirts and coffee mugs. So wrong number. Wrong number. What are we doing? Hi, welcome back to Talk About the Passion by the Year. Tonight we're talking about 1971. Um, this is a fun year. I was two or something like that. Um, and sorry it's taken so long in between these episodes. I got some stuff happening. But today, usually when I have been putting these episodes together, I mean, there's only been fucking two, so it's not like there's this long storied history of how I've been putting these together. Um, but I'll put all the records I feel like I'm going to talk about on a playlist and just sort of listen to them in the car over a few weeks. In this case, it's been a couple months, I think, on these. But today I went out. I had some errands to do. I'm off work today. I had my first chemotherapy session yesterday, and somehow I feel pretty good so far. I haven't had any of the terrible side effects yet. But I had to go pick something up and go to Walmart, which is a terrible fate for anyone on at like 12:30 on a Thursday, which I didn't think would be that. And this is one of those superstore ones. Um, and it was kind of a nightmare. But then all of a sudden, "Feed the Tree" by Belly came over the sound system in there, and I was thinking I'm probably the only fucking person in here that knows that. And I, of course, immediately texted my friends John and Steve to let them know, and they both were very excited to hear that I was having that experience there. And then I reminded them of just how awful it was to be in there. And then I remembered I have cancer, which is probably worse than being in Walmart on a Tuesday to pick up a new Apple Watch, Dick Tracy watch. This is not it. Anyway, the first one I'm going to talk about is it's kind of fresh in my mind because I listened to it today when I went on this trip. And instead of having all these albums on shuffle, this one kind of stuck out to me. It's this band, Blues Creation, and they're from Japan. And the record is called Demon and 11 Children. And guitarist and band leader Kazu Takadino. Sorry, I can't pronounce some of these names, and I am really sorry about that. Noted how the titles of Atomic Bombs Away and Brain Buster were derived from his love of professional wrestling. When asked about the meaning behind the album title, the guitarist said, "I have absolutely no idea. Sorry. Perhaps it's something the record company suggested, or maybe some other band member came up with this weird title." It's a weird comment because that title song, "Demon and 11 Children," that closes this heavy ass fucking record. It's an epic song, and I imagine it's got some meaning behind it. I've never really looked into the lyrics, but it's pretty epic and surreal and fucking weird. This song is the longest song on the record at a little over 9 minutes, and it's this epic song. But for a 9 minute song, it has these really catchy lyrical hooks on there that wouldn't sound out of place on like a Vanilla Fudge record or something like that. So it's crazy that it's like this epic 9 minute fucking journey. That's because then it gets into this like fucking mind bending Sabbath riff jam, and it kind of sounds like Grand Funk a little to me too. And it's just a perfect ending to this record. And the beginning though, the first song right off the bat, "Atomic Bombs Away," starts with this heavy, Sabbathy riff. It's like an overused um, description for riffs at this point. But the vocals on that come in like immediately, like 35 seconds into the song. And no, so here's something very important to me in like this how bands sequence records. And it's like a secret, or I don't know, or maybe it's just me, but I feel like the second song on a lot of records is extremely important. I'm sorry for the creaky chair, but because a lot of times if you know you're obviously opening the album with the what you think is your best song, or the one you want to grab the person. But I think the second one is often the one that needs to grab you, because then you've kind of made the effort, or putting the time in. And then if it's a record where after this second song you see there's a lot of like 8 and 9 minute songs on here, and you're thinking, do I really want to waste time on this? And this isn't one of those. This doesn't have that many. I think the average songs on these are like 4 or 5 minutes. A couple longer ones, but that last one is the longest, the 9 minute one. And the name of the band is Blues Creation. They're from Japan, and of course in the second song on this record is called Mississippi Mountain Blues, and of course with that name. And when you're describing a band with riffs as Sabbathy, you're essentially saying that bluesy, because that's what Sabbath is. It's the bare minimum of what Tony Iommi was coming up with there, obviously. And it was the early '70s, and a lot of these bands were doing this sort of like heavy blues stuff. But this song opens with just like a solo harmonica, just sort of this kind of generic thing, and then there's like an acoustic guitar, and a lot of times when you hear like a harmonica, right off the bat, you're like, "What are we doing here?" And that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen with this. It's not, but it's just not the best song on the record. And the guitar solo on it is kind of cool. It's starts with there's an acoustic guitar, and he starts the solo on that, and then it switches to electric guitar. And the guitar playing on this record is just it's insane. It's just the tone, and the playing is just that heavy in your face. And I think they would have been better off, using the third song on this record, which is called, what is the third song on this record called? Let's see. We got it up on the thing here. The third song on this record, sorry, I'm sick. It's called Just I Was Born. And the riff on this one is like, like just punches you in the face immediately, and you don't know what to do with yourself. And, this whole record smokes, and the comparisons to like Sabbath via the Yardbirds is pretty accurate and spot on. And I highly recommend this one. And let's move on, though. We got a lot to cover here. So speaking of the second song theory, let's talk about this guy. You ever hear this one? This is an album called Master of Reality, and it's by the band Black Sabbath. And this is like a later pressing. Let's get the sweet leaves on this. So yeah, it's green, man. But let's talk about that second song theory on this, because the second song on this record is After Forever, which it's like a top 3 Sabbath song for me, I think. The riff in the song is just it's fucking perfect, and the lyrics on this whole record is this is usually my favorite Sabbath record. I kind of go back and forth between this and Volume 4. I think the first two were like on their own like island. The two that like sort of created this whole fucking thing that sucked. If you were around getting into these guys at the time, and you heard that first one, and you were like, wow, this is fucking crazy. And then Paranoid comes out. You're in for the fight. You're strapping in for that ride. And then this guy comes along, and then Volume 4. But yeah, so this one is perfect. But let's talk about the last song in this record, because when we're talking about 1971, the riffs that exist throughout this year are plenty. And this one is no doubt filled with, of course, Sweet Leaf, After Forever. And this is also one of the ones where, I don't know if it was the first time, but Tony Iommi toned down. Yeah, he toned down. He's like, yeah. No, he tuned down his guitars on Children of the Grave, Into the Void, and Lord of this World, I think. But Into the Void, let's talk about that song. Because when we want to talk about riffs, that one is that's probably the best riff that's ever happened. Soundgarden did a pretty cool cover of that where they switched the lyrics up on it. That was on like a bonus CD that came with Bad Motorfinger. But let's talk about them. We can get to them in 1992 or whenever that one came out. But this fucking record, but this Into the Void, when you think about this song now, like in 2025, you're kind of jealous of these guys because it's, essentially about, these freedom astronauts that are just like the Earth is like, destroyed from pollution and war. And these guys are like, you know what, let's just get the fuck out of here. Let's go find some other place. So they find another planet and decide to start a society and a better life there. But the last line of the fucking song is this devastating. Leave the earth to Satan and his slaves. Leave them to their future in the grave. Make a home where love is there to stay. Peace and happiness in every day. It's like, yeah, fuck you people. Enjoy burning for all eternity. We're gonna be doing some PMA shit out on this new cool planet here. You should have fucking listened. But yeah, so imagine being able to do that right now in 2025, just being like, all right, had enough of this shit, fucking out of here. That would feel pretty good, I think. And this song preceded by, the somber Solitude, which is what I mean about, sequencing a record to perfection, because, sometimes it's, because we're used to hearing these records forever, that just, oh, I'm so used to this is how these songs are in this order. It's just amazing. But I feel like these Sabbath ones are intentional, and they make sense and they work. And I think there was a lot of thought put into how these records were sequenced, especially because a lot of these do include these little, interludes like Embryo and Orchid. But, Solitude is another one, just like, Planet Caravan, one of those like moody, just quiet Sabbath songs that, those are the ones where, you're taking bong rips in your friend's attic, back in, imagine like 1971, you get like some crazy bong filled with crappy Acupulco Gold. You get to smoke like 8 bowls of it to feel anything, but this song's playing. And your friend Dave is, passed out. So you steal some of his out of it. You pinch from his bag. Remember that? Yeah, dude pinched from my bag. Whatever, man. But yeah, 1970, and then like I'm always confused about what they, how these the dates of some of these records, because some people attribute this to 1970, and then some say 1971. This is an album called Paranoid by Black Sabbath. We got the box set up there too. That's worth having. But this one, I think it came out in the UK in 1970, and then like January 71 here. But we'll include it here for a second because, obviously this album deserves more than a second. But this is the second Black Sabbath album, and it's got War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Maiden, Iron Man. It's got stuff. I'm on meds. Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, Fairies Wear Boots. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Black Sabbath. We're going to hit them a lot because they have a lot of stuff coming up in the years that we're going to be covering here. And but we're in the weeds with them right now, so to speak. And I'm not just saying that because I'm not just saying that because Sweetleaf is on that one. And then let's talk about this guy, Cheech and Chong, the first Cheech and Chong album. This one was owned by some fella named Bob. If you are the Bob that owned this, I got this used a few years ago, and you're watching this. If you're one of the 63 people that's going to watch this video, that's about my average for some of these. Hit me up. I can give it back to you. I only paid like $7 for this. But this is the first Cheech and Chong album, and this is, I believe the story is, when they started doing these routines and came out of, Southern California, and they went to New York, and they were doing a lot of bits on like the car culture of Los Angeles and Southern California, and people in New York couldn't really relate to that, and so they sort of started this, druggy um, humor, and I think that's the story. But this came out on A&M Records in 1971, and this, of course, includes the "Dave's Not Here" bit and other stuff like what else is on this one? These records were around my house when I was Blind Melon Chitlin and Acapulco Gold filters. See, they were tripping in court. Um, Welcome to Mexico. Yeah, but Dave's Not Here. Waiting for Dave. Cruising with Pedro de Paca. But these records were in my house when I was a kid. We my dad was really into comedy, film, but also records. And we had these. We had, the Bob Newhart records. I have all the still, like, I rebought them, all the Cheech and the George Carlin early records from the 70s, Class Clown, Occupation Fool, On the Road, A Night with Wally, whatever. One with where you get the shirt with the weed thing. But yeah, the comedy records we like, Monty Python, the National Lampoon records were always played in the house. And of course, I'm 6, 7, 8 years old, and a lot of this stuff was over my head. But we we grew up fast in that house. That's all I'll say. Other notable albums this year: Deep Purple, Fireball. We talked about them on the last one, of course. With, I think, In Rock, right? But this is another one. This is like a newer pressing, and it's Purple, because the name of the band is Deep Purple, so that's probably why they did that. And this is another, just one with, the beginning of just like these amazing riffs. Some of my, favorite songs in this are of course, the opener, and then No 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 is another one of those, the second song on the record, and but then this, record gets hella cringy with the song Anyone's Daughter, which, makes, Christine 16 sound like a fucking Leonard Cohen song or some, it's just, but, other than that, red spot on this record, it's a perfect, it's a fucking great record. And, of course, Friends, Wargasm, did a great cover of this song, and did a parody cover, which I have the CD here somewhere, but I'll just put it up on the thing here. See, yeah, right here. And that's a cool EP, and they of course did a great cover of that. Perfect band to cover Deep Purple. Obviously a big influence on all three of those guys. But this record, yeah, an amazing record. And then let's talk about Budgie, the first Budgie record. No, I didn't first. At one point, I heard someone describe Budgie as what Rush would sound like if John Rutsey never left the band, what they would have like wanted to sound like, which is kind of true. At least on, maybe not on this one, but on the subsequent ones, which were really good. I have this little box set here, which has I think it's the next three after that one, which are Never Turn Your Back on a Friend, which has Bread Fan, which Metallica famously covered, and In for the Kill, which has Crash Course and Brain Surgery. But this is one of those sets. These I love these little like these box sets that it's just, I think it was like $20 for this thing, but it's got the first because these aren't on streaming, and they're cool little recreations of the albums. Look at that. But we're not talking about these. We're going to talk about, why am I bringing this up? I totally just blew my thing on this because these are coming up in the next few years, and I'm giving away what is it? Giving up the ghost? Is that what that expression means? We'll get back to this. Right now, we're talking about the first record, which also, it's like one of those early metal records. And, of course, the first song on the record, Guts, is, has this fucking amazing riff that sticks in your head like, a fucking knife from that Atami guy in that movie, Sisu. You see that movie? I'll put the picture up in the thing. In the opener, fucking the riff from that song does it too. It gets all up in your guts. Is that what that means? Oh, no, that's another thing I'm thinking about. But yeah, and it's just an album filled with just good hard rock. And but the centerpiece of this record is the epic "Nude Disintegrating Parachutist Woman," which is this like 9 minute fucking weird, surreal, riffy, fucking just crazy song. And the the main thing on this record is the guitar tone, which is going to be sort of the theme, I think, in 1971 with a lot of these records is sort of the birth for me, and the stuff that I love is the guitar tone a lot of these guys were getting. And the next one I want to talk about, it doesn't really fall into the metal sphere at all. Or what, sort of what I've been going for here is sort of like starting in 1961 and trying to narrow it down to like where I got with, at least the stuff I listen to mostly, which is, hardcore metal and or just stuff that got created my entire persona or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about here. You know what I mean? The guitar tone in these records. But the next one I want to talk about is Humble Pie, the Fillmore, live at the Fillmore record, Rock in the Fillmore, which my dad recently, because I was telling him I was listening to this record a lot, like a month ago when I started thinking about records to talk about from this year, and he said, "Oh, I was at that show with Bernie, his friend that also worked at A&M in 1971," and so that's a pretty cool story to be able to tell. Yeah, I was at the Humble Pie thing. How's this thing? But yeah, so the guitar tone on this fucking record, it's this is a top 5, live hard rock record. Peter Frampton, shortly after this, he's like 21 years old at this time. This is when he was playing that famous 3 pickup Les Paul, which has a pretty crazy story. But he left shortly after this record. But some of the guitar playing on this, and then just Steve Marriott singing is it's just like it doesn't fall into like what we're talking about here, but it's just one of the best fucking rock records. If you like bluesy hard rock, you probably know this record, and you probably know it's like a perfect fucking live record, and it's up there with Live at Leeds and Banded Gypsies and stuff like that. And I guess the connection to like metal would be, you got to imagine guys like Michael Schenker and Glenn Tipton were probably grew up listening to this record. So yeah, let's move on to this one. Alice Cooper, Love It to Death, considered one of his best. This one's falling apart, but I love the inside of this. It's always been one of my favorite things. And this is sort of when he started getting a little more heavy. This is, I think, one of the early Bob Ezrin did. I think he was starting out around this time, maybe. I don't know. And yeah, this record rules. It's got the famous "I'm 18," which is it's a great song. Regardless of who cares if it's the popular hit or whatever. It's so good. Anthrax covered it. And Killing Time, I think, covered it too. Did a pretty good cover. Ballad of Dwight Fry, it's a perfect song. Isn't My Body, Hallowed Be My Name. This is a perfect record. And, I don't, I love this record. It's maybe not my favorite of his. I think I like Killer. I think that's the next one. I think that was 71 too, maybe. But that came out this year too. And also this record, speaking of my dad, a few years ago, or maybe a decade ago or so, he had a record label with another guy, and they were reissuing a lot of stuff on like gold discs and 180 gram vinyl. It was that high end vinyl stuff that people were buying. Which I like a lot of stuff, and they were getting licenses for good stuff. They had everything from the Doors to I remember they did the Thief soundtrack, the Tangerine Dream one, Kate Bush, Elvis Presley, The Doors. Did I say that? Grateful Dead. Even did Riot, the one with I think the first one with that stupid seal thing on the cover. But yeah, so when he had this record label, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and everyone I would do some errands for them. And at one point he said, "We're doing this giveaway for Love It. We're going to do Love It to Death, a gold disc of it, and we're going to give away an autographed poster, but we need someone to go get it autographed." And so we were going to do that. You're going to take this poster down to this warehouse in downtown Los Angeles, DTLA, where Alice Cooper is going to be filming an episode of Celebrity Ghost Stories or something like that. I found the episode at one point on like YouTube or something, um, which was just what I don't remember what that show was about. But he essentially said, when you get there, you'll find this, ask for this manager guy, and he'll pull Alice Cooper out for 8 minutes, and you can have him sign this. And so I did that, and he came out, and it's always those things like when you meet these kind of people, these famous people. I'm not like a starstruck person usually, because I've met my share of some famous people, but and anytime you do, it is always like shocking, just like when they first come out, you're like, oh, there you are, you're that guy, there you are, Alice Cooper. So yeah, I got him to sign the picture, and then of course I got a photo with him, and yeah, nice guy. Great album. 1971 also gives us heavy hitters like the Who's Next, uh, Led Zeppelin 4. Two perfect albums for me. Those are another two that like we don't need to put that much time into, because a lot of time has been put into those records through my ears and probably through your ears if you're of a certain age and person type. Person type, is that a thing people say? Um, but those two records are, Who's Next is, every fucking song on that record. You get, Bob O'Reilly, Won't Get Fooled Again, uh, Behind Blue Eyes, made more famous from Limp Bizkit. I'm just kidding. Going Mobile, there's the Cat Feeder thing. Yeah. Getting in Tune, does that. Yeah, it's a great album. And then this one, this guy, right? Did you ever do that thing where you held this up to a mirror and then it reveals that this is like the face of a lion? Did I do that? I did. I have I got like I got a couple copies of this over there somewhere. Why does it matter? Why am I doing that? I probably messed up the thing. But look at this, right? Everything about this, the way when you look at this record, when you put it on and it like, and then you hear Black Dog, that like the top, like that fucking thing comes in. Um, and then the second song in this, Rock and Roll. What? Um, this album was one. I was away in New Hampshire a few years ago, and there was I don't know, it was up the street here. But there was I drove by and saw a box of, when you're driving around and you see like a box of records on the side of the road, which isn't a thing you see all the time. But around here, every once in a while, something like that happens. And I spied this just at the front of this thing, and I think I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, I think she was driving, and I'm like, we got it, and I don't think she understood this whole thing of me with these and stuff. So of course I spied it, and I was like, I'm not gonna say anything now, but when we come back, I'm gonna be like, hey, when we're driving past this, and it was like in a place where you couldn't really stop, and so I had her pull over when we were coming back, and I just like, because it was in it, I just went out and just grabbed this box of records, and it was mostly shit. And this one is like, it's unfucking playable. And there was two of them, and that's why I was looking at them, because one of them doesn't even have a record in it. But I don't have a copy of this. But I've been rebuying all. See, now I'm gonna fuck with this thing. But I've been rebuying. This is when you see these guys. I've been rebuying all the Led Zeppelin one, those the reissues, and they all sound amazing. So I'm gonna get to 4 at some point, because this might be my favorite. I don't care if people are like, that's the obvious choice, but I mean, it's an obvious choice for a fucking reason. Fuck you if you don't like Led Zeppelin 4, and I'll stand by Stairway to Heaven too. I don't care if you think it's overplayed. Where's it overplayed? I remember this guy I know says it all the time, and I'm always like, he was always at the prom, and I'm like, how many fucking proms did you go to? Right? I mean, we like really paying that hard attention to what they're playing at the fucking prom? Get out of here. It's a good song, whatever. Where else are you ever gonna you hear the thing fucking if there's a bustle in your hedgerow? When is it? You got to hear someone say that, and that's in your head now forever. A bustle in your hedgerow. What the fuck does that mean? Sir Lord Baltimore, the self-titled. That's another one of these bands that people. I think they're from Brooklyn or something. One of these like sort of early heavy metal bands, and I won't argue with that. I don't know the record that well, but when I've heard of them, I like them a lot. But this band I need to. But they're just one of the ones I put on this list, and yeah, and some good stuff. And then speaking of riffs, we get the James Gang Thirds in 1971, which opens with, of course, with Walk Away, which is one of the out of the 2 songs called Walk Away that I'm familiar with. That's the best one. The second one being the one from Dio era Sabbath. From I think that one's on Heaven and Hell. It's walk away. It's like fuck you. I'm walk away from this fucking bullshit, Dio. Good for you, buddy. But this one, Walk Away, is they're telling the lady to walk away. Joe Walsh is like, fuck you, I'm staying here, you walk away. Where Dio's like, I'm gonna fucking walk away. That's the difference between those 2 songs. I think I'll have to revisit that. We'll get to that one in 1980. Is that when that came out? Heaven and Hell. Funkadelic Maggot Brain happens in 1971. A few years ago, I got in a lot of trouble with my friends on the internet, as I do sometimes when I do these hot takes. I'm not one of those. I'm not really a hot take guy, but every once in a while I'll shit one out, and I usually get rightfully thrown down. Like I've shit on Weird Al Yankovic a few times, just to poke the bear. I don't have a beef with him. Whatever. He's like a nice guy. He's funny. But I once went online and said that I thought that opening the album with the song Maggot Brain was like a bad idea, because it's just this good long guitar solo, and I said it would have been better as like the last song on the side 1. And my friends all came out and politely disagreed with me on that notion, and that's fine. I've since come to peace with that, so that's fine. It's a good song, right? It's just you want to open your song with an album with a 10-minute guitar solo, you can do that. But then and this is another one with track 2 thing, because then we get Can You Get to That, which is that soulful song, and then Hit It and Quit It, which is another amazing riff in 1971. What do you know? Hit It and Quit It, that song. And this album just doesn't. This is another one like Maggot Brain. For me, is their first great. I like the first one, and I think the first one and Free Your Mind. I think the first 2. I think this is the third one. We talked about the other 2 on the other one, I think. But this one is every song on here is good, and then it ends with the epic Wars of Armageddon, which is like it's like almost 10 minutes long, and that's just this surreal, fucked up journey that has like a lot of weird like loops and samples and some some funny lyrics in there that I won't get into that use the P word that ends with a Y. And yeah, it's a good record. That's a good record. T-Rex Electric Warrior comes out in 1971, right? That's a good record full of some insane guitar. The guitar tone on that record, and just every song on that is catchy. You know, it's like that era of that kind of stuff, like Bowie and T-Rex. I love. Um, who else? 1971. MC5, High Time. Sister Ann, Miss X, Future Now. Come on. And I like that one a little better than the first one. I think it's just a good fucking hard rock album that it's loud and just it's got that fucking alarm clock on there that just smashed alarm clock. I think right. I think last time I said it was a bomb when I kind of mentioned that I'd be talking about this one at some point. But yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna stop here because I feel like I've probably been talking for a while, and I did try to get some of the cat and beard hair off of this before I started filming here, so I apologize if that didn't work out as well as I planned. But we're gonna move on because 1972 is gonna be crazy, and I'm gonna try to do these a little more often. And also, I think I'm going to open these up to some guests. I have a few friends in mind that I think would be good for certain years, and if you're one of those people and you think you might want to talk about some of your favorite albums from one of these years that's coming up, but not 1978 because that's the one I have in my head for this particular guy. But if you want to talk about 73, 4, 5, 6, 7 through the 80s and the 90s, I think once we get into the 80s and late 70s, that's going to get real fun because that's sort of my wheelhouse. Up until the early 90s, and then I'm excited to then get to this more modern stuff because I was one of those people that for a long time didn't listen to like modern stuff as much, and now I try to do that as much as possible, and take into consideration when friends and people I've known for years whose music opinions I respect recommend stuff. So I've tried to do that more in the last 25 years. I'm just talking about like the late 90s is when I was like, yeah, there's nothing good coming out anymore. Where's my COC albums? Where's my Crass? I don't want to be that guy anymore. What do you got in 2025? I got a playlist here of stuff I'm listening to in 2025 that we'll get to at some point. Rose City Band, even the new Dream Theater. I don't fucking care. Whatever. Nels Klein, uh, John Reese put out a fucking amazing record. Chime Oblivion, the guy from the OCs. I talked about that a little on one of these things. Conan had a good record. The new Aesop Rock album is fucking amazing. Heavy Lungs is another good one. Fishbone put out a great record. Uh, who else? Arcadia, the guy from the drummer for the Mastodon, has this cool kind of like gothy disco type thing that's really good. Vicious Rumors, which is sort of a new band to me. They were a metal band that was together a long time ago, I think, and now this is a newer one. Uh, so yeah, Black Eyes, Discord, a lot of good stuff still coming out in the world, and a lot of stuff coming up that I'm pretty excited about. So yeah, but we'll get to that stuff, months from now, hopefully. As for now, that's it. You enjoy the rest of your day or night, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.